what keeps coming back to me is I don't understand, and I realize this may sound very stupid to you guys, but I don't understand how poor people borrowing money to buy houses in the United States could suck up all the money in the world. I mean, we don't have that many poor people. If we bought, it seems to me like the money that's being talked about now, the numbers that are being talked about now, we could have bought every red-lined person in the country a house from the Treasury and have been done with it.
Well, it's not just the house, it's the debt on the house. The banks were willing in this era to loan additional amounts of money on second home equity lines of credit that maybe were excessive beyond their ability to pay. And because the credit was so easy to achieve and the money was so easy to get, unknowing people or certain people that aren't business oriented thought, well, this is a good thing. They're willing to loan me more money, not realizing how aggressive that loan really was in their personal situation.
So, all of them haven't defaulted.
I beg your pardon?
All of them haven't defaulted.
No, but the ones that did were very big.
So the defaults really are in these trillions. The mortgage defaults are in the trillions.
Respond to that? I mean, your question's a good one. I don't know how you quantify that number when we get overflow in the system, but when they start doing that in the mortgage marketplace, and most banks now have mortgage company subsidiaries, but to some degree, and maybe this is not a fair assumption, but they opened it up to where you could borrow money to buy a house if you had a pulse. That's about what it amounted to. So you had a whole lot of people who were unqualified that could go in the marketplace and borrow money. One example, the one they had that just makes no sense, it's still a function of, I like to say in my classes, if you borrow a lot of money, whether it's for a house or whatever, and you get too much debt, you get leverage, or you don't have the cash flow to repay it back, on a quiet night, you can hear those payments fall due. So again, they actually came out with a loan, if you can believe it, and certainly as Helen mentioned about, and Barbara as well, eating up all their equity that they had because the housing market was going up. But they had a new and innovative product that was called No Income, No Assets. So in effect, if you had a pulse, you could borrow money. So it was a function of just what your credit score was. But a credit score certainly gives some indication to how you repay, but it doesn't measure leverage necessarily. So you could have somebody who was renting who couldn't afford really to buy a house, and the marketplace said we're going to fill that need. And the one thing that I've said, consequently to popular demand, I was not witness to the Depression. I'm not that old. But what we saw happen is traditionally the maximum loan that you would get for financing a house was 30 years and no longer. And then we came out in the marketplace to help you and I get into that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. We came out with 40-year mortgages. We came out with a 50-year mortgage product. Now, who in their right mind would want to buy a house and have that obligation for 50 years? I mean, it makes no sense. And no income, no assets. All of those things didn't make any sense. They're just nuts. And also, a larger problem, too, along the same line, was the awful acronym, the adjustable rate mortgages, and how that affected the marketplace. And that was just as big a sin as the no income, no asset deal, was they put people in products that they couldn't afford. I could go out there and say, let's say we ran the numbers on Duke and he could afford a $250,000 house, and I go see a mortgage loan originator, and I said, I'd really like to live out there in Southern Trace. I got a great golf game, and I want to be close and rub elbows with the rich and famous, and I want to do that. But the houses out there start at $400,000, and one of the mortgage loan originators said, Shazam, I can put you in that house. And what they did is they did the creative financing with the adjustable rate mortgage, which part of the carrot was it was a cheaper interest rate in order to do that, but the shoe was going to drop at the end of, say, a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage. They also did some reverse mortgages. Let's say your principal and interest payment on a 5-year adjustable rate on the period. Let's say your monthly payment was $2,000, and so they want to put me in that $400,000 house. So they in effect set me up interest only, but my payment, the payment is what the payment is, so that payment's not going to go away. So they would take the difference, and a portion of that being interest and or principal, and add it back to my original loan balance. So let's say I borrowed $200,000 at the end of 5 years when the chicken came home to roost, I might owe $275,000. The unsophisticated borrower didn't understand that risk and what that meant, but the guy that was moving those loans got his commission and moved on to the next one. That's part of the problem.
It's about the shifting of risk that I talked about, related to shifting that to the secondary market. The primary mortgage lender got it off their books. It's gone. They're not even worried about how they're going to collect it. It also comes back to borrowing to just go on vacation, but yet the housing prices fell. So why am I going to pay this $275,000 mortgage now? This house is only valued at whatever. I'm walking away from it. And so there was a lot of speculation in the market as well. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal about condos in Florida that people have put contracts on and hadn't even been built yet. And now they're trying to get out of their contracts because the prices have fallen, and they don't want to take those units any longer for the original contracted price because the value's not there, and they don't want the mortgage either.